Supreme Radio, Supreme Radio, Supreme Radio.
The original UK Black Men Talk radio show.
Conversation with the international life coach Hario. So just going to keep it moving, because before the break he was explaining to us about women and so-called bad boys. So we're going to keep it moving, then I'm going to check in with you guys. So Hario, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Yes, so you continue.
Well, we were getting to what is it about bad boys,
yes.
So-called bad boys. I wouldn't even call them bad boys. I would call them males with no boundaries.
Right, say some more.
Yeah, let's stop calling them bad boys, because it's always for things that we like, is we can put the label that we want on that, and that's what has been done. It's a guy that doesn't have boundaries. They love being with a guy that isn't going to say things like, wow, you're going to dress like that, or, you're going to act this way out in public. And, they want to pick a guy that is an easy, soft target, that is not going to hold them accountable for things, that isn't going to have any real constructive lifestyle for them. Everything is just going to be do what I want, and you say things that please me. And that's basically it. And the good guys are the guys that, you're trying to hold a woman responsible, hold her up to her end of a bargain. And we get a lot of flack on that. As far as men, we get a lot of kickback. We get a lot of negative feedback from women about our expectations, what we expect in relationships. And it always goes back to, well, when men cheat, men do this, men do that. And I'm thinking, like, women cheat. We have people who have studied the numbers. Women cheat more than men now. It probably has been that way, but women never spoke about it, and they were never as vocal as they are right now. But nowadays, especially here in America, it is open, and it is known that women are doing most of the cheating out here. And I'm saying even the married women, especially the married women.
Hearing so much about in America, and the African American women. Do African American women, do they get stereotyped, or is it something that they've brought on themselves in terms of I'll call it the actualization, because that leads us nicely onto that topic of women and how women are seen, because that's an area we're going to look at, because how the black man sees the black woman is important, how women see themselves is important. So we know that our beautiful African American sisters, I call them our cousins, have a reputation of being out there. Just a reputation of being, it's a cool thing just to be at one with yourself, with how you look and just everything else. So would you say that there is over-actualization of the African American woman?
Well, I would say this to be fair, because that's one thing about men. We actually can be fair. To be fair to them, honestly, yes, because we can actually be fair, and I'm gonna be fair with them that yes, it is an over-actualization of their negative behavior. It is.
Right.
That's what's mostly being captured out here. That's what's being looked at. However, it's true. So they can't say it's a lie. It is absolutely true, though.
You don't think it's
The
an
things that
unfair representation of black women in America?
no. And the reason that I'll say that it's not unfair is because there has been you got to understand the tragedy behind the brokenness of our homes. We cannot depend on these women anymore to be able to keep our relationships together. They feel no obligation in keeping that family together. Absolutely none. You have women filing for divorce from their husbands, not because they're cheating, not because they're beating them up and stuff like that, but because they simply aren't happy anymore. I want something different. I want something, I want some excitement. And they're literally leaving their homes and relationships, marriages, just based on that. And men, for the most part, we don't do that. We actually stay in loveless, stagnant marriages.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Hario, men stay. And as someone who's collaborated with men as well, I know that we don't get to see in the system that side of it where men are actually staying in marriages. Men are sometimes being fathers to children that are not biologically theirs, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh my goodness.
But sometimes men are not appreciated, and men are also...
Sometimes.
Right, I say sometimes. And men are out there sometimes worried about their daughters, for example. So we know it's not all women. And like one of our listeners said, that, you know what, don't have to say it's not all, because everybody knows it's not all. So we should be able to just say it without saying it's not all women, because we know that we're not talking about all women. I'm a woman. With regards to this image, some people are saying that the media is putting this image forward of black women unfairly, so actualizing the whole X image of black women so that everyone can look at black women as X objects. That's what some people are saying. But you're saying, no, the women are doing this and the women are behaving a certain way. And do you think social media is to blame? Or would you say that as black women, we have to be accountable for this image worldwide? Over to you. Any thoughts? Harry?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. We always are going to have to be the ones that protect our image. And when you look at the numbers, and when you can go into any community, let's change the race for a moment.
Yes.
If you can go into the white community and you can ask any white guy what it's like to be married to a white woman, and they overwhelmingly tell you the same answer, or answer that is always going to collaborate with the other another white guy's answer, then you will start to believe that, okay, it must be that way in that community. And it's overwhelming. Even the men who pander. I was on, like I was telling you earlier, I was on a TikTok. I was on a TikTok panel.
What happened?
And over the last couple days, good God, you do not want to go into some of these rooms. If you don't think that these females, I won't even call them women. If you don't think that these females have become the worst version, the worst, most racist version of men that they say that they would never want to be around, it was unreal, the amount of no respect that they have for men. I mean, none. And I'm saying, don't take my word for it. Go on to TikTok and watch some of the live videos. I was looking at one particular video, and this woman said right on her caption that men entering the room must pander to the women.
She said they must. Right.
She said
She's being
must.
transparent then.
I could not believe it.
She's honest.
Could not believe.
Must.
And when you see it, you start to understand the mindset that they have these places set up where you know, if you come into the room, you must praise them and their accolades and accomplishments. And it just, to me, it just said, wow, you know, because they were talking about how it's easier it's acceptable for men to have accomplishments and to talk about his accomplishments. But when a woman talks about her accomplishments, then she's shamed for it. And the reality is that men don't run around talking about our accomplishments like that. We absolutely do not. And they do. And it is a sad affair. And then they look back at us and say, because we don't want to date people like that, oh, you can't handle, you know, a strong woman. You can't handle a woman who has her own. You can't handle. And they're right. We can't handle something like that. We can't handle someone who's going to disrespect us in our homes, someone who is not going to be submissive towards me. No, I can't handle that. Why would I? Who wants to? And we don't have to. And we're not going to.
Sounds like men have had enough, ladies.
We have had enough.
I've been saying
we are
this.
done with it.
I've been saying this for a while because men talk, and that's why the show's called UK Black Men Talk, and men share, not always openly. They're not always going to come on the radio. Hario, with regards to the women, because remember a few weeks ago I mentioned I went on a certain platform and they were inviting me to live, so it sounds like a similar experience with me. I didn't go into the actual room where you can go on and talk, but I was in the chat and I was listening, and they were saying things about men, notably black men. And I know that they say that sometimes men are jealous of the success of black women. I've heard that. And for women who don't say that, I don't say that, other women don't say that. However, there are lots of ladies out there saying all sorts about men and women. Do you think the social media, we can somehow contain it? And what do I mean by that? There are boys going out there talking horrible about women. People say they're influenced by the music. That's one area. There are boys out there who are holding black women in high regard. There are boys out there who are doing that, black boys. So we know it's a mixture, but there is some saying epidemic. And some of the ladies will say, Hario, and I've got to put this forward, some of the ladies are saying it's the black men doing that. The black men are going onto those platforms, talking about how they don't like black women, what's wrong with black women, a list of all what they don't like about black women. That's what some ladies will say. I say it's both. What say you?
Because you do see a lot of platforms where black men are talking negatively about black women. Well, some of them are speaking negatively, and some of them are saying talking about our frustrations with black women. So if it's negative and it's true, that's something that you have to look at as well. When we talk about the women who speak against black men, you know, we don't say that what they're saying isn't true. We're saying it's not true about certain men, because there's a separation. We separate ourselves from the guys that don't work and don't take care of their children and things of that nature.
Yes.
We separate ourselves with that. We don't praise men, and we don't stand behind guys that do stuff like that. Women, on the other hand, they don't shun that activity away from the sisterhood. They stand behind all of the women, no matter what's going on. No matter if she's out there pretending for 20 years that the children that she has are this man's that she's married to, and then he finds out 20 years later that those are not his children. We got a judge here right now that has just recently found out that he's getting divorced from his wife, and this is a judge, and neither one of their children are his.